what up, guys? Welcome back to Discussion Lounge. This is Alan. I'm back here with Gio, and we are actually going to talk about some stuff. Gio had some stuff lined up for us just so we can make some content. We actually just reached 100 subscribers on our YouTube page, so thank you guys out there. I know we haven't been putting out a lot of content, but we're trying to work on that. And today we're gonna be chatting it up. While also I continue my run of Elden Ring. So this is actually my first Souls game ever. I've been having a lot of fun. It's like really a gorgeous game. The world is vast and it's just I've been having fun exploring it. And yeah, I'm just gonna run through it while me and Gio have our chat like we usually do. So Gio, what's been up, man? How you been?
Not bad. Just working. Uh, just a little distressed about what's happening in the world. It seems like it's a very chaotic time right now. But before we get into that, so how many hours have you put into Elden Ring? Well, how's
So look at I'm gonna check right now so that you can because you have the Twitch pulled up, right?
he playing it?
97.28 and counting. So I'm coming up on 100 hours on this game now,
Nice. It's like our
and
100 subscribers
yeah,
all coming together.
and I haven't even scratched like the surface of this game. So yeah, dude, you're feeling crazy. You're feeling distressed about the world. Obviously, you're talking about the Ukraine Russia situation. Um, it's been
Yeah.
super hectic. I've been following it, and you know, mostly I've been following what like people who have no idea like what they're talking about, like are saying about it. And not to say that like I'm one of those like people. I don't know shit about foreign policy, but I know so little that like I know that other people don't. Right? It's like, dude, like I know you for sure. Damn, don't know what you're talking about. Um, but yeah,
Definitely. Like, yeah. So there's definitely a lot of, I would call it, propaganda on all
mm-hmm.
sides, both from the West, from Russia, from the Ukrainian government, and it's kind of hard to tell what's actually happening. Um, Although I think that what's clear to me, and I don't even know if most people agree, is that Russia is definitely in the wrong here. Like, regardless of NATO expansionism, right? That's what some people talk about. That
Yeah,
like the West is like uh, pushing up against Russia and like baiting them to do something. Like, regardless of any of that, like you don't, what they're doing in Ukraine is like basically massacring civilians and killing a lot of innocent people. And so first, I wanted to ask you a few questions about like what you've been seeing. Do you hear anybody like at work or anybody outside of? I know you watch. You're like embedded. You watch a lot of like political YouTube
yeah.
and leftist YouTube. So besides that, like, do you hear anybody else talking about it or what they think about it, like in amongst your family or amongst friends or coworkers?
So I haven't really talked to a lot of people like outside because I've been working from home, so I don't really, I don't get to hear like the water cooler talk at work or anything like that anymore. Um, but I have seen like people on my social media literally posting like they were posting footage of like how some of the streamers were watching like city camera footage and waiting to see like if bombs were gonna go off and shit. Like they'll repost that and like they'll say like where's the war in Ukraine, like literally saying like it's like fake.
Right.
And then on top of that, like I've been going back and forth with this guy like that. We actually so we did a show for this bike club, right? And this guy was DJing there, and this guy apparently is like all into conspiracy stuff and shit. And he's been posting, like, oh, Ukraine is full of white supremacists. If you support Ukraine, you're basically supporting white supremacists. And then he's also doing like the what about the U.S. argument, right? Where like, oh, like Russia is, Russia. although they might, be in the wrong or whatever, like who's America to say, who can invade where, or who there should be supplying weapons with. And I just died. Fuck. Um, so yeah, that's the argument that they're having, or that I'm seeing a lot from people who don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I guess a quote I heard earlier this week was that if, and I agree with this quote, is that it was bad when the United States did it to Iraq, and it's bad when Russia does it to Ukraine, regardless of left or right or west or east. You
Yeah,
kill
and it seems like
civilians.
yeah, and it seems like it's like, oh well, like then what are you saying? Like that you just don't want to take a position? Like are you like anti? Are you just like non-interventionalist? Like is that what you're saying? Like, but they don't seem to like take a position other than like America bad too.
Mhm.
And like I don't know, it's annoying.
I hear that too. I've heard. I had a bunch of people over this weekend, and we had an extensive debate about what like the role of NATO. We've listened to Vosh talk about NATO
Yes.
the last couple of weeks, and I learned a little bit about the history of NATO from him, and it got me like curious, and so I started reading about like the intervention in Libya in 2011, the intervention in Yugoslavia in the 90s, and like the background behind all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it, some people think of NATO as a force that for imperialism, or at least like a tool for imperialism. And in a way that can be true. Like there's some conspiracy theories that the reason we bombed Libya, or NATO bombed Libya, was to eventually take control of their natural resources,
Mm-hmm.
because the dictator Gaddafi was in power for so long, and he wouldn't like mess. He was kind of like the Saddam Hussein of Africa, or kind of like Hugo Chavez for Venezuela.
Yeah.
He was like an anti-imperialist, anti-like West, almost pro-socialist dictator that would not get along with the U.S. or the West, and would not use the dollar for exchanging, oil. And also, Libya was a really oil-rich country. And so then the conspiracy theory goes that we saw that the Arab Spring was taking root in 2011, right? And you had like the Egyptian Revolution, the Syrian Revolution, in the revolutions in Tunisia, and then you had a revolution in Libya, and the West. Oh shit, you died.
Yeah.
The West took advantage of it and bombed Libya, and then overthrew the dictator. But then if you look at the details of it, you saw that uh, the Libyan government was like launching airstrikes against civilians, and the same thing in Yugoslavia when that civil war broke off. I still need to learn a little bit more about Yugoslavia and what exactly went down there, but it seems to have been a similar story where a dictator was targeting civilians, and NATO was like, we gotta do something, and so the NATO decided to get involved. Um,
Well, yeah, it sounds like this is like the same thing that people are choosing to ignore with Russia, right? Like the way that it's fucking done its own civilians.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and in this case, yeah, Russia is. It looks like it is deliberately targeting civilians. Like that's what I'm getting at. I don't know how we could. I mean, it's possible that the entire Western media is brainwashing us into thinking that Russia is like fucking evil.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is possible, but there's so much like footage available to you, like coming from social media, from people on the ground,
Oh my god. Uh
like
huh.
taking video. So it's almost impossible to fake what's happening.
I mean, you can either go by that or you can just be like, "Yo, watch the fucking footage of Putin saying like, yo, I'm invading Ukraine." Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I don't
yeah,
understand like the whole like what the whole debate is about, right? Like he's literally saying like, "Yo, I want that shit back," and I want it because I want to continue like this fucking this dead Soviet fucking dream that they have, right?
yeah. What do your friends think about, or friends or family think about the gas prices and the effect of gas prices on it?
Um, I mean, yeah, everybody's like super, frustrated with it. I know I am. Like when I saw it jump up to like up in the 530 range, I was like, yo, this is crazy, you know, especially like when we were used to like when it got to like 3 plus, we were tripping out, right? So now it's like $2 above that. Um, yeah, I mean, but that's what happens when sanctions occur, right? When people start going back to work. I mean, there's like a lot of factors, obviously. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
people.
don't really know what I can't put it all. You can't really put it all on the war on Ukraine, right?
Right, right. Because of COVID, people are going back to work, and now
Yeah,
you're seeing people like driving and using oil, and
right.
also the supply chain problems that we've been having for the last 2 years.
Yeah, so you
How?
know,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
it's
for it.
very it's
No,
like really easy for people to think that like you know like the president has fucking sliders like and be like, oh, gas prices up today, you know, or this go down today. Like it doesn't work that way, you know.
and some people do think that the president like controls or the party controls gas prices.
Yeah.
So then I'm wondering like what effect this is going to have on the election that's coming up this year.
Oh, but yeah, definitely like the same. It's all the same effect, right? Like if somebody like is blatantly like if there's an issue, right? Like let's say how can we equate this to like Donald Trump's presidency, right? He over like Hillary just being like a like part of like that Clinton machine, right? Being like a warmonger almost, like just being super like having like a shady past, like that super hurt her, right? And I think they're just trying to anything bad that happens, like they'll try to make it stick towards the next election, right? Um, what was going on during? Sorry, I'm trying to think and play at the same time, and my brain's crashing. Um,
I was gonna,
but yeah, they were doing that whole lock her up shit, right?
yeah.
And that's pretty. I would like attribute like a lot of the reason why he won over that narrative.
Remember, a lot of it was also blamed on Russia and their intervention in the election in 2016.
Yes.
Um, Supposedly, Russia, with in cahoots with WikiLeaks, hacked into Democratic Party servers and leaked a bunch of information.
Yeah, but they were helping the Republicans, so they don't care about that, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. At the time, I would think that the um, just because the Democrats are not as bad as the Republicans in terms of Trump doesn't mean we don't deserve to learn about things that the Democratic Party has done or is doing incorrectly. And
Right.
I forget what exactly was the issue. Like I believe part of it was the conspiracy between the within the Democratic Party to basically um, destroy Bernie's chances of winning the election,
Oh, right.
or
They were
kind of
colluding against him, right?
yeah, colluding with the media, right? And I forget exactly what, but I think it had something to do with that, and that definitely pissed off a lot of people. And it is attributed to Russia's intervention, so-called intervention in the election. Um, Russia seems to have been like planning this for a while,
Oh
you know,
yeah, absolutely.
setting things up all over the world. Here in the U.S., um,
And that's like the best thing, right? Is like they know that they could like crumble us just like by like sprinkling misinformation here and there, because they know how like our population works, you know.
that's actually one of their doctrines, military like propaganda doctrines. I
Hmm.
think it's called reflexive propaganda, and it basically means that they will put out misinformation or information, it doesn't matter, in order to get a response from your opponent, right? And get the response that you want out of it, like
Hmm.
giving them information, like leaking things or putting things out there that is gonna you expect your opponent to behave in a certain way or react in a certain way. And yeah, that seems to be their operating their how they operate.
Yeah, and dude, our population right now, dude, has more than ever been like so reactionary, right? Like they hear something, and I've been guilty of this as well, where like I hear something and I run with it, or like I'll repost it, and I've deleted a lot of shit after being wrong. And it's because, dude, like sometimes it's just super convincing, or it's just people just don't like look into it deeper than the headline, right? Um, and yeah, when you have a population like that, dude, it's really easy to muddy the waters. And like you see people now, it's like literally doing like Russia apologia on fucking Instagram or on social media.
Yeah. What do you think? Did you hear what Trump's reaction to the invasion was? That
Um, no.
it was. He said that it was. He thought of it as a genius play, a genius move on the part of Putin. He's like, yeah, like why didn't I think of that? I think is what he said. He said something along the lines like we could have used our military to go and like reinforce our border, and Putin's just like protecting his border.
Wow, really?
And then also, and then I guess the thing that he was calling genius was saying calling like how the eastern part of Ukraine was basically they basically gave out passports, Russian passports, to some of the people in eastern Ukraine, and called them, and then said that there's like Russian citizens there and Russian speaking people there, and then funneled weapons into that part of Ukraine. And for the
Wow.
last 6 years or 8 years since 2014, there's been a war, right? This war, like this invasion that happened a month ago, is only like the latest escalation in something that's been happening for the last 8 years.
Hmm.
And basically Russia gave said this area right here is no longer Ukraine. This area right here is now this independent country that we came up with, right? These two different countries, and now we're going to defend these people against Ukrainian the Ukraine the Ukrainian government is committing genocide against these people right here, and so our special military operation is we're going to go in to defend these people, and so that's what Trump was calling genius. He was like, we could have done something like that, right? Like convince the people of Mexico or claim that this part of Mexico was actually U.S. territory, and the Mexican government, like needs or the Mexican territory needs to be decartelled because there's so much like violence because of the cartels, and so we're gonna move our troops into like in the same way that Russia is saying that they're gonna denazify Ukraine, we're gonna
Uh,
decartel Mexico.
that's insane, bro.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just Trump. Also, Tucker Carlson. I just heard him saying the exact same thing like a week ago. Um, so it it's crazy how a lot of people on the right are now taking the side of Russia, even though like historically Russia was a lot of conservatives were anti-Russian because they were like communist or supposedly communist. It's like things are just like turned on their head.
And yeah, it's frustrating to see, man. Especially like, I mean, a lot of the people, like I said, that like have like these opinions, like they barely understand like the policies here in our own country, but they want to comment on like the fucking complexities between like Russia and Ukraine over fucking decades, you know. Um, I don't know. It's frustrating to be honest because it's already bad enough, right? That you have like war going on, but then you have people, doing this dumb shit as well. Um, and it's also like too like there's like what's the solution, right? Like because they don't want to go ahead and say that they're full on like non-interventionalist, I guess, because they don't say that. All they want to do is like, and this is something that I probably did a long time ago, and I probably still do it. Like I love to point the finger at our own country and be like, yo, we've done some fucked up shit too, you know. Um, but it's only like in because I know that we could do better. It's not because like I want to be a dick about it. But in this case, when you have a country like Russia trying to do this to a country like Ukraine, where we said we're not sending troops, which is what the people are like mostly like concerned about, I think. Um, but I don't see the harm in like helping a smaller country like defend itself, regardless of the like the politics that have been going on, right? Like if it was the other way around, like I don't think people would be like, oh, it's okay for Ukraine to fucking do like to invade like on Russian territory. Like I don't think people would be saying that, right?
Uh, this was one of my questions. Should U.S. or NATO get more involved in the war?
Uh, yeah. I mean more involved as in put troops on the ground. I mean, like that's like a NATO choice, right? Like, but I don't think it should just be in like an American choice.
Global, it should be the United Nations or
Yeah,
NATO.
yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, I would agree with that because I think look, a lot of people say, and I think I agree with this, that the consequences of us putting troops in Ukraine right now would be like direct conflict with Russia, um, a country that has like the most nuclear weapons out of any other country, has thousands of nuclear weapons,
Hmm.
and Russia has and part of Russian military doctrine is to use nuclear weapons, small scale like tactical nukes, in order to de-escalate situations. So it's like escalate to de-escalate is part of their military doctrine. So if I think that if NATO got involved, they would absolutely crush the Russian army
Hmm.
because we've seen how poorly they've performed already, and our like our troops not like our technology is pretty advanced. We saw how it worked in Iraq, and 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 just the intelligence apparatus that is available to the U.S. government. I think they would defeat the Russian army in conventional combat, but then Russia would just use nuclear weapons,
Hmm.
and that would mean that could get out of hand pretty quickly. Not just like nuclear weapons in Ukraine, but we could go to like full on nuclear war. That's the that's the hesitancy of getting more involved. And is that worth it?
Hmm.
Should we risk the end of the world to defend Ukraine?
I mean, it's that or what? Like Russia keeps expanding and expanding and expanding until I like could because oh well we gotta let Russia do whatever it wants because it's threatening fucking nuclear war. Um.
Right. Yeah, that's the alternative. We deal with them differently because they have nuclear weapons,
So what about like just a direct play on Putin?
like an assassination attempt.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be ideal. Yeah, that would be. But then, I think that would be less. Um, I wonder how Russia would react to that. You know, like how would the military react? How would the people react? Um,
Yeah, it would be interesting because I mean, from what I understand, like the people of Russia aren't super happy about this war either, right?
I think the last term numbers that I heard was that 15% of people are against it, and 85% of people are like, they don't really care.
Okay, so
Yes.
being like so being mad about it is actually an advantage, right? So yeah, if they're not like willing to like continue it after like the dude who starts it like is no longer in play, um that might work
It
because
might.
he already lied to a lot of his people. He lied to a lot of his soldiers about what they were even doing in Ukraine in the first place. um I feel like something's wrong because I have not gone through this and there's no enemies here
You gotta leave the area.
unless I broke it somehow. um yeah, so I think that's how it goes.
We could
I
do
don't I
like
don't know
what?
a lot about the history, right, of Russia, or like who's next in line, like who, like does he really have anybody who is willing to continue this like this push for like trying to save the Soviet fucking Union or making it rise again, like
From what I understand, there's like a inner circle of oligarchs of like super rich, super powerful Russians that are
Mm-hmm.
some of them are like former military people. Some of them are just like super rich because they benefited from the collapse of the Soviet Union as like all this like capital was available and they just grabbed it all.
Mm-hmm.
And um, oh, you stopped streaming?
I'm just restarting.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so there's this group of powerful Russians, right? And the way I understand it is that Putin is actually kind of playing referee amongst them, and there's kind of like a stable equilibrium amongst all of them. However, I think a lot. I've also heard that a lot of them are not down with what he's doing in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and there are moves and the whispers of potential like
So they could be
either
They could be cooing as we
yeah,
speak.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They could be getting ready to do that. So that would be one, I guess, a step in the right direction just to get rid of Putin. Um, uh, but the United States also has a history of like riling up and getting the CIA involved and getting arming local populations to rise up against their government. You know, it's kind of like their operating procedure as well for overthrowing democratically elected governments. But in this case, Russia, like Putin, has been in power for 22 years. It doesn't seem like it's like functioning democracy, and also the media is so locked down that we can't even get through. You know, none of the Western media is getting through to people unless you're there on like TikTok or something. Like the younger generation,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
else just watches TV.
And then what is it? They're just getting their information from RT, right?
Hmm. Yeah, or any like any Russian local Russian news,
Yeah.
which is all like sanctioned by the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask, do you remember the sentiment around the Iraq War back in 2004? What that was like? Remember people talking about that at all?
I do remember like a lot of the like the talk about weapons of mass destruction, right? Like WMD talk, a lot of that. Like, um, I do remember everybody being fucking for it, like as right after 9/11.
Yep, too.
But it did start to like I think after we started like moving from Afghanistan to Iraq, I think people were like, "What the fuck? Like, you know, what does Iraq have to do with it?"
I remember, yeah, people being in favor of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
going in there, taking out Bin Laden, and I do remember in 2003 people being in favor of the Iraq War as well at first. But I do think it took about a year or two before, like towards the end of Bush's presidency,
Mm-hmm.
to people to be like, yeah, no, and that's why Bush's uh, popularity like hit like tanked, right? Because of the Iraq War turned it from like a war into an insurgency and an occupation where a lot of
Right.
Americans were being killed. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I think that's something that would start to happen in the population with Russia, right? As like right now they're like you said, like some of the people are more like mad about it, but over time like they're gonna be like, yo, like stop this, right? Like if it's not now, like you said, plus they don't have like media like from outside like letting them know like, yo, like, you know, this is how the rest of the world feels about this. Like they can't really come to that to that realization yet. I guess, yeah. Give me 1 second.
yeah, no problem.
All right, I'm back. But yeah, I do. Oh shit, sorry. Yeah, I do recall that, and yeah, I do remember a lot of people just eventually, because they kept saying, right, like, oh, we're gonna find these, and they kept having meetings, right, and they kept going to fucking Iraq and like meeting like with their people, and like they still didn't find anything, and like they never came up with shit, right, and then they just like expected everyone to forget about it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yeah.
that for that reason, like I can understand like these people that are like, oh well, like, you guys are talking about Putin lying to his soldiers, like look what the fuck we did to ours, right? And like, yeah, you have a point.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it was bad back then. It's all bad now. What's then what? You know?
Yeah, so yeah, that's all you're saying. It's like, oh well, both people bad. Okay, yeah, well now what? Like, like if you don't have like a solution, or if you're not gonna take a position, all you're really doing is like you're fucking narrating.
Yeah. All right. I got one more question for you. I wanted to make this one short. The our conversation, so we can have like good
Yeah,
content to cut up.
for
But
sure.
in case of a nuclear war, do you have do you have a plan for nuclear war?
No shot. Like I do not have a bunker. I don't know anyone that has a bunker. I'm pretty sure like LA would be one of the first spots to get hit. Um, just because of the amount of people that live in it.
Yeah.
So nah, man. If nuclear war ends up happening, I mean, you just kind of gotta hope that it doesn't hit in your area. But I mean, even if it doesn't, like the fallout would kind of destroy everything else. Yeah, it's not good, man. And I think that this is like the case with a lot of people, right? Like, not a lot of people have defenses against a nuclear attack. So, um, yeah. What are you planning?
I I feel like I'm in a slightly better situation because I'm out east a little bit in Riverside,
Mm-hmm.
and I still think I don't know what the fuck Russia would target. You know, like
Yeah.
I think they would target nuclear missiles, and then if they're fucking killing civilians in Ukraine, then maybe they don't give a fuck about killing civilians all over the world with their nukes. And so maybe Riverside does get targeted, but I've heard that like going southeast is the best way to go. Usually because those are least populated areas, and because of the rotation of the Earth,
Mm-hmm.
fallout like nuclear fallout wouldn't like necessarily go in that direction. But
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. But of course, I don't want it to happen.
Would
Um,
you be okay, or not okay, but like, I mean, at this point, right? If if Putin gets super super desperate, I mean, could you see, not if you support, obviously you won't support it, but could you see like the U.S. just nuking Russia and being like, fuck it, like we're not dealing with this?
I could see. I think the like a realistic scenario where that would happen is that Putin uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and then the world is so outraged that we target their NATO targets their like airfields and their missile silos with conventional weapons, to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he responds with nuclear weapons on our airfields, like in Poland and Germany, and then we launch nuclear weapons against more airfields and more military bases in Russia, and then it just kind of like tit for tat, like gets larger and larger. You know,
Wow.
I think that's the most realistic scenario. If nuclear war were to happen, I think that's probably how it would go down. That somebody does something stupid, at first,
Yeah.
and then people just get
Re-
really pissed.
Retaliation for the stupid shit that the first person did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That that or like a misunderstanding, like somebody misreads one thing or another, like a Russian fighter jet accidentally like hits like fires a missile and misses, and then it flies into Poland and kills somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're like, well, and then they shoot down the fighter jet, and now Russia's like, you guys just shot down our fighter jet, now we're gonna fucking bomb your airfields, and then boom, escalation again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, because it doesn't look like Putin's interested in any peace talks. I mean,
No,
what peace could he want? He wants Ukraine. Like, like there's not really much you could like talk him off the ledge from.
I understand. Like he just seems really stupid now. Like I always thought of him as like a really intelligent like mastermind, or at
Yeah.
least a lot of people thought of him that way. But this was like a bad. Like, didn't you learn from? They invaded Afghanistan in the '80s and they got their asses kicked. That's how the Soviet. That was one of the reasons the Soviet Union collapsed because
Hmm.
Afghanistan just drained their resources, and they didn't see like Vietnam. They didn't see what would happen to us in Iraq. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like a huge miscalculation.
I mean, I think he probably sees that he's running out of time, right? And like he wants to like realize this fucking like Soviet Union fucking rebirth, and he won't. I think he's choosing like now to do it, and yeah, I think there's not like a lot of reason to it, because it's not like he like what did he think he was gonna? I guess he thought he was just gonna like roll up and take it, and that like NATO was gonna let him. Like I don't know.
The Ukrainians were gonna let them. That the Ukrainians were all like they're just a bunch of Russians being held captive by like Nazi government. I
Yeah,
think
like
was
they
what he
wanted it,
believed.
right? Like, oh, Russia's gonna
Yeah.
come take us back. Like, no, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Well, you want to cut it there?
Yeah, we can stop it there, man. Yeah, it was cool talking to you, and
Um,
yeah, I'm going to get out of this game for now. But yeah, man. Thank you guys for joining us, and hit that subscribe button. Give us a like, hit us up with a comment. Let us know how you guys feel about the Ukraine Russia issue, and what we could be doing different, or what you see happening in the future, and hopefully we'll have more content for you guys. Thank you guys so much, Gio. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys again.